All right. Happy Wednesday afternoon, everybody. It is 2:40 Eastern Time, so we're going to get started. My name is Kevin. I work with Configura, and I'm going to be the room buddy today, helping to facilitate this fantastic conversation. The session that you're in is Elevate Your Experience, hosted by Jill Frazier with Kimball International. We're really excited for her to share with us today, and I'll hand it over to her in just a moment. For everyone that's been participating with CET experience over the last couple days, you've heard this a couple times, but one quick housekeeping note, we're using Zoom webinar for this breakout session. You won't have the ability to unmute yourself automatically as we engage in conversations here, but obviously we want you to participate in the conversation. So you do have the ability to use the chat function in the bottom of the window, where you can type in comments as the conversation goes along. If you have specific questions that you would like to ask, go ahead and put those in the Q&A box. I'll be keeping a close eye on those and being able to help facilitate those conversations. And then you can also raise your hand where I can unmute you and you can actually ask your question if that's the preferred method as well. So we're really excited that you're here, and I'm going to hand it over to Jill.
Perfect, thank you. So I'm Jill Frazier with Kimball. I am the design manager here at Kimball. And I have been a exclusive CET user. I used to tell people for over a decade, but I had a call a couple weeks ago with Tracy from Configura, and she and I discovered we started around the same time. So I'm pretty sure it's been a little closer to 15 years now. So definitely well over a decade at this point. So I've been involved in the development and design of numerous extensions for various manufacturers over the years. Not only the development of the CET extension, but also how we can use CET for a better overall design experience. And at Kimball, we've really started to dive into what we're calling the Elevate process, or the Elevate experience. And that's specifically how we're using our CET extension to really go to market from a sales perspective using Elevate. So this session is Elevate Your Experience. There it goes. Sorry, it was taking a minute to wake up. So, quick little blurb. As Kimball and National continue to look towards how the future landscape of design is evolving, and we realize that over the last 6 months, it's definitely evolved even more than maybe what we anticipated. I'm sure at some point, most of you have probably been working remotely or working through this type of technology. So we realize that the landscape of design is constantly evolving, but there's certainly been things recently that have kind of pushed it into overdrive. But we need to ensure that our specifying software meets the new demands and also the challenges that our design community will face. We don't know how long we're necessarily going to be working kind of in these processes, but we're sure that new challenges will continue to pop up as we kind of learn what our new design landscape looks like. So with the expansion of our development team, the implementation of new features in CET, and our continued rapid addition of product lines into Smart Symbols, we've improved our extension to support the needs of our designers as they work in a collaborative manner through real-time design to elevate the design solutions that enhance the effectiveness of people and the efficiency of space. So the 3 key points that we really want to focus on is expansion of our development team. We're going to talk a little bit about our development team, how they've changed recently, kind of over the last few months, and how we're interfacing with them from a design perspective to make sure that we're releasing very complete and extensive extensions into CET. The implementation of new features in CET and how we're testing some of those, and then our continued rapid addition of product lines into Smart Tools to elevate the design solution and how we're using Elevate in our everyday selling. So the first part of that is the expansion of our development team. We now have over 25 developers that are now focused on the development of the Kimball brands in CET. So we are hoping that by the end of this year, All of our product will be smart in CET, though you can access all of our product in CET. We have quite a few product lines that were just recently released and a few others that are quickly on the heels of being released. But we're hoping to have everything smart, again, by the end of this year. So 25 developers is quite an increase from what we had before. So as you can see, just a quick breakdown of our development schedule. The first block shows fiscal year 21 Q1. Those are product lines that were actually just recently released for both Kimball and National. That's quite an extensive line. We partnered not only design and eTools to be able to come up with that list and develop what those extensions look like. And then you can see the fiscal year 21 Q2. Those are all the items that are on dock to come in next. And at that point, currently we sit at about 70% complete. As far as smart extensions go, again, everything can be accessed in CET, but as far as smart, we're at about the 70% mark. So before I dive into Truly Elevate, I just want to talk quickly about a journey of a new extension. This has been a really exciting process for us at Kimball. It's something that's kind of evolved over time. So when we started talking about how to develop all of these new extensions and make sure that they were rapidly going into CET and making sure that they were most effective to be used in the field, we realized that we kind of needed to have a little bit of a mashup between the eTools brain and the design brain. While eTools definitely writes the programming, they make sure that all of the rules are followed, they're making note of what's in the spec guide. We want to make sure that from a design perspective that those symbols that they're creating truly function the way they're intended to when we're in the field and we're trying to do live design. From a designer perspective, we really want to make sure that the extension has what I like to call the creature comforts. Just because we do A to B to get C, we want to make sure if we do C minus B, we still get A, and that the extension doesn't go wonky or sideways and says, hey, you can't do this. We understand that there's multiple ways to do things. We want to make sure that we're covering all avenues to be able to get to the same solution. So now when we develop a new extension, Kimball design strategists work with a product line manager to help develop an overall roadmap structure of each product line extension. So there's actually a designer that is providing some feedback on how they would like to see the extension work based upon how they believe they'll use it in the field in a live design setting. Do we want one symbol that does all the things, or do we want to have to swap back and forth between multiple symbols? Does it make the most sense to have multiple symbols? Does it make the most sense to have one symbol and have it be able to do this, that, and all the other things that are needed to be able to come up with a solution? So we're really working with a product line manager to look at the statement of line, as well as that designer taking a look and saying, okay, this is how ideally I'd like it to function. From a design perspective, again, we focus on those creature comforts of the extension and how to ideally have it function while in a live design setting. Again, we want to make sure as we're pushing and pulling those symbols, they're not crashing on us, they're not saying, hey, that's not able to be done. We want to make sure that they're functioning regardless of the process that we use to get them in there. Our roadmap is then handed over to the eTools team for execution and development, truly making it what it is, making it a true extension, programming it. Once it's developed and released into a beta version, there's actually another round of testing that's done by our designers. So eTools kind of comes back and lets us know what from our wish list was realistic and possible. They can show us what the extension is. We get a demo on what those extensions are, and then we're given some time to actually use them and see if we can either use them effectively, if there's any errors that we found, if there's something that we say, hey, this just isn't quite right, or we want to be able to do it this way or that way. And we're able to actually provide some feedback prior to the actual public release of those new extensions. So feedback is provided to the eTools team, bug fixes are occasionally caught, additional enhancements are made to the extension, and those additional creature comforts are added prior to the public release. So once a extension is created, we have additional resources at Kimball to help promote a better user experience. We have 3 levels of Kimball training, all that of which focus on CET and how to draw on CET and how to use the extension. Level 1 are the pre-recorded modules for product lines. Right now, it's for all existing product lines. As new product lines become introduced, obviously new modules will be created. Those are all found on Kimball University. They show the typicals being built using the CET extension. Level 2 is our live webinars since March, and everybody kind of going home and some showrooms closing. Temporarily, it has we've had a large focus on the level 2 trainings and those live webinars. That's really where we have designers join the webinar. We walk through how extensions function. We demo each extension. Again, we create that typical together live in CET. So not only are you learning about the core product, but you're also learning about how to use the extension. And then level 3 is our in-person training at our Jasper headquarters. Hopefully we can get back to that soon. In addition to these trainings, we also have what we call a CET roundtable. That actually happens with our dealers in between our testing of the beta version of CET and the public release. That roundtable allows us to also demo that extension to our dealer designers and allow them to provide feedback on those extensions to even help further enhance those creature comforts that we want added. So that's also part of our offering before an extension is released. But if we're talking specifically about enhancing our projects, in addition to getting all of our product in CET, we also take advantage of some of the free extensions that are in CET, including Ulio. So if you got a chance to join the Ulio training yesterday, that is something from a Kimball perspective that we're starting to dive into. Again, though only about 70% of our product is smart at this time, all of our Kimball product, as well as national, can be accessed through catalog browser or project symbols. So all of our products in there, so 100% of a project can be completed. It's just a matter of getting those last few items programmed to be smart. And then the addition of My Resource Library. So we were the second manufacturer to be a part of My Resource Library. So we do have a custom Kimball catalog out there in MRL where you can actually search for our typicals and use the drag and drop to pull those full complete typicals into your CET project. And we reference that as we kind of go through the Elevate process. So the reason we've put such a focus on CET is because, again, at Kimball, we are going to market from a sales perspective using our Elevate process. In the past, we've kind of thought that the main part of CET was really just to be able to do the co-create. CET is great for being able to show live design and moving parts and pieces together on a screen. But we realized there was actually a little bit more on the front end and the back end of that. And both of those processes, we could use CET to help enhance those particular parts of the Elevate process. So you'll see that co-create is in the middle where you would expect to use CET in the live design, but there's ideate on the front end and there's evaluate on the back end of that. And we'll talk through each one of those steps and how we're using CET to accomplish those. But before we do that, why Elevate? So Elevate was originally created for our healthcare vertical. We realized that truly in healthcare, furniture was in fact saving lives. But we quickly realized that Elevate actually had a purpose in all verticals. The true purpose of design is the opportunity to create efficiencies in the collaborative design of spaces. We oftentimes get stuck in this very fuzzy front end where we either mark up stagnant or flat drawings, and then we dive into placing parts and pieces on a page, but we're not really looking at the holistic picture. We're looking at individual pockets of a design, or we're not taking into consideration pricing or customs and things of that sort. So we oftentimes get stuck in this fuzzy front end. It takes us a long time to come to a design decision, which oftentimes puts furniture at the tail end of a project instead of early on in the process where it can really be integrated in the design. And we wanted to come up with a way to kind of streamline that process and get out of that fuzzy back and forth in front end. So again, the process, while that solve and co-create is kind of right there in the middle, Elevate combines the value of design thinking with the power of design in real-time technology to help customers enhance the effectiveness of people and the efficiency of space. So again, we're used to using CET for that solve and co-create and live design part in the middle, but really there's listen and ideate on the front end. It's identifying project objectives, it's confirming business goals, it's gaining key insights from all the stakeholders, and enhancing that level of communication and collaboration, which we use the CET tool to be able to do that. Then we truly have the solve and co-create. In the middle, we have design in real time to clarify the user experience, what it's like for that user to move about the space. We co-create in 2D and 3D simultaneously. We don't live in a flat 2D world, so we don't want to plan in one. It's really important to be able to understand the 3D environment and how that user is going to move about the space. We add in architecture, identify material selections and be able to show the material selections, both fabrics and finishes. We're generating a BOM as we work, so we're actually creating that bill of materials so we can see true numbers and metrics as we go through the process. And then the ability to be able to create the visual fly-throughs and the visual mock-ups, because again, we understand that the way we're working today has certainly evolved and in some cases has evolved rather quickly. That the ability to be able to travel somewhere may be limited for some time. The ability to be able to create mock-ups could be limited. The cost involved to create a mock-up is somewhat limited at this point. So we want to make sure that we're using the program to create those virtual fly-throughs and mock-ups. And then finally on the back end, the adjust and evaluate, confirm budgets and expedite orders with real-time analytics. So we're not creating multiple steps to get from a design to create a special to get pricing. All of that is done seamlessly in one step. So it's helping us expedite the actual ordering process. We're able to confirm budgets with real-time analytics, real-time estimating. We're able to apply edits to the overall global BOM. So there isn't days lost or gone by between making changes. We're able to do that all at one time. It helps us expedite orders and delivery confirmation. There's a lot of information that we can get whenever we have that BOM generate as we work that we can use internally to make sure that we're processing orders and deliveries more efficiently. So our roles in the Elevate process, and this looks different whether it's us at Kimball that's leading the Elevate process or whether it's your dealership that's leading the Elevate process. We do have some dealers that are in fact doing their own version of Elevate at this point, but we always need three key roles in the process. The first being the facilitator, which in our case is the market sales manager or some sort of sales representative. They encourage participation, they build a framework, they share the understanding of the problem. They seek inclusive solutions and design solutions based upon shared responsibilities. We have the design strategist or the designer at your dealership. We understand in detail the issues, we ideate the solutions, we help organize multiple solutions, again, using the CET tool. We select criteria for finding the best solutions and communicate the solution through package design, and using the CET program and all of its interfaces to be able to clearly and seamlessly communicate the solution across multiple roles in which are involved in the project. So being able to take our CET file, importing a typical from my resource library, being able to export that to Revit so that another person within the process can communicate on the same drawing. Then present and test the solutions and design solutions based upon shared responsibilities. Then the end user or key decision maker, that changes depending on your project. Sometimes it is truly the end user. Sometimes it's a key decision maker from an A&D firm or some property management firm or something similar. But they understand the details and issues and challenges of their current environment. They can also clearly communicate where they want their environment to go, whether they're moving into a new space and they want just a different process to happen, or whether they're renovating their current space. They provide direction and goals of the project. They speak to current workflow and where they'd like the workflow to go, again, in those new spaces or in the renovated spaces. And they assemble and appoint user groups to share a broader view if necessary of all of the overall project goals. So how are we using CET to accomplish this? So the foundation includes 5 different aspects of CET to help really work our way through the Elevate process. The first is just truly the floor plan, being able to simultaneously plan in 2D and 3D. Again, we want to be able to see that 3D world. We want to be able to see each area instead of just individual pockets. Each area allows us to know how the entire space will function as a cohesive ecosystem. We want to understand the crash points. We want to understand that if we move from one area to the next, where do those crash points happen? Is that effective collaboration? So we want to be able to communicate in 2D and 3D. At this point, we also want to be able to take a look at, if we move one department back, can we safely bring another department back? What do those particular crash points look like? What happens whenever one person moves from one area to the next? There's a lot of considerations and benefits in being able to see the plan in 2D and 3D and understanding that entire holistic picture. The second part is we use CET to place not only fabrics, but also finishes. It's really helpful for an end user to be able to see, if I select a grade A fabric, how that impacts the overall price of the project versus selecting a grade F. So we want to be able to show those true fabric and finished placements. It also allows us to look at the plan and see how things such as color can help support wayfinding to get from one area to the next within a particular facility. The third is a kit apart story. Again, today, as we are considering bringing people back to the office and what those groups may look like, kit aparts is actually becoming more prominent maybe than what it was before for a lot of our clients. They want to understand that if today that particular area needs to house 10 people, will it be able to house 20 safely in the near future? What does that look like? What parts and pieces do we need to be able to swap around to create a true kit apart story to make sure that we're returning everyone to the office safely? The fourth part is pricing comparisons and cost of alternative options. There's a lot of information that can be pulled from the calculation sheet. And as we break down each step, we'll go through how the calculation sheet really helps promote the foundation of the Elevate process, but allows us to look at true numbers and metrics with each alternative that we create. And then the fifth is the ability to be able to create customs as we work live. Not only are we using these drawings to communicate the design intent to the end user and make sure that we're achieving their overall goals, but we're also using these drawings internally to clearly communicate our design intent with our by designer specials team to make sure that we're using the right base product to be able to create those specials, and that the specials are in fact what we're trying to achieve. So truly, Elevate has become a proven working model for us. The Elevate process eliminates the fuzzy front end of design. It helps us streamline that design process. It helps us eliminate the fuzzy front end, and it helps furniture really become an integrated part of the design conversation, the design process, and not just an afterthought. So we're gonna break it down. Again, that solve and co-create is really in the middle, but how does CET help promote the listen and ideate phase on the front end and the adjust and evaluate on the back end? And we'll go through these 5 steps. So again, Elevate is Kimball's process approach to design to optimize project results, increase owner value, reduce waste, and maximize efficiency. So we're streamlining the process. We're removing the traditional silos to allow maximum collaboration at every point in the process. We're increasing productivity via workflow efficiency, that ability to be able to share drawings back and forth between different trades and different people that also need to access the drawings and be able to communicate efficiently. We're able to share proactive insights and reactive modifications, utilize a creative process that budgets, designs, and provides solutions really in one step, allow for financial alignment of the design, and track financial performance based upon an overall project. So the first part is the discovery workshop. It's meeting with key stakeholders to identify business goals and opportunities for improvement and efficiencies. But instead of just coming in saying, what do you like, what do you not like, or coming in bringing stagnant typicals that we're redlining, and then we go behind a closed door and try to edit those typicals, we're using CET to use pre-existing planning ideas or previously completed plans to fly through a space. Even if it's not quite what they're looking for, it at least starts generating conversation. We can use my resource library that we're now a part of to pull typicals into our drawings. So we have some true metrics to work with. We have a true typical that we can start editing live. We can raise panels or bring them down. We can add glass, and we can look at the pricing as we're doing that. Even before we have a pricing conversation, we're at least getting some realistic information. Multiple alternatives can be created or shown to help guide decision making and express likes and dislikes. We can very quickly and efficiently create multiple alternatives in CET. That way we can say, you know, maybe you were thinking 42-inch panels before, but understanding what we're up against and bringing people back into the space, here's what it looks like with 50-inch panels and glass on top. Quick swaps can be made to planning ideas to quickly visualize or show an idea or a concept. We're also able to start drawing specials or customs at this point, so we can start having internal conversations about what is possible and what's realistic with our products. So it's using CET as part of that discovery workshop. Then we move into goal setting. Still using the CET program and using our smart extensions. Goal setting helps identify and prioritize goals and objectives, analyze current state and KPIs for project outcomes. Again, we're easily using the typicals from my resource library to start those conversations. We can show multiple options of standard product along with the pricing information and start to show the customization. And we can quickly modify products to reflect potential custom solutions. And it's the ideate. This is really where the true center of that elevate process comes into play. That's where the live design is that we've been using CET for quite some time. So we can visualize and simultaneously value engineer the design concepts in real time. That's moving those parts and pieces around together. Again, planning in 2D and 3D simultaneously, looking at that 3D world, understanding crash points from one department to the next. Identifying the material selection, create renderings and fly-throughs directly from the program as we've worked live during a meeting. Confirm budgets because the BOM has generated as we worked. Expedite orders with real-time analytics. So we're able to look at that bill of materials and pull up additional information such as crate sizing so we can get a better understanding of how to bring things to site. Apply global edits so we can quickly talk through what happens if we add glass to this entire department. What does that do to our overall pricing? What if we change from A to B? What does that look like? And then since we have that BOM generating as we work, it helps us more quickly and accurately complete our specifications. Then launch. So we're still using CET to create and help support a customer standards program. We understand at the dealership level that there's oftentimes a lot of standards programs out there for a number of the clients in which you service. So we're using CET to create blocks and favorites to expedite future planning sessions. We're creating schemes to apply finish selections quickly and efficiently to different buildings or locations. There's custom calculation sheets and views to show what's most vital to each client. We're developing custom catalog symbols and pricing based upon the specials that we may have created for one facility. We're able to create those custom catalog pieces so that they're easily accessible for another location if we need the same part and piece. And we can embed our specials and COMs directly into the drawing files, so we're not referencing multiple documents whenever it comes time to create another floor, another facility, or another location. And then finally, it's using CET for the test and feedback, which is usually not something that we're used to doing, so we're just now starting to dive into this. We understand that most of our end users have some sort of usage tracking on particular rooms, specifically collaboration spaces. One, we understand that test and feedback today may look a little bit different. If we have a 10 or 12 person conference room, it may not be realistic to use that space for what it was once used for. So we need to be taking a look at that particular space, potentially redrawing it and starting back at the beginning of the process to come up with another use for those types of rooms. But we can also take a look at the analytics in which they've pulled from certain spaces and the usage of those spaces. We can evaluate design decisions for continuous improvement by creating quick alternatives of rooms that appear to be underused. We can relate building analytics to overall plans to find trends in rooms or space usage. So if there's particular collaboration areas that seem to have a higher usage than other spaces, we can take a look at those and see how to edit the drawing and edit the drawing live to reuse those parts and pieces to maybe make that space more efficient. We visually review the plans in a 3D to better understand the successful or non-successful crash points. If we realize that people are having to travel through the finance department from one department to get to another, maybe they're not set up in the most efficient manner. So again, being able to look at that plan in a 3D environment to understand how each individual area works together as a cohesive ecosystem. And then visually be able to see the plan as a cohesive ecosystem and not individual pockets to understand the demands on space. So I'm going to open it up for questions. If you have questions about our new extension developments or how we're going to market some additional training opportunities, or how we're utilizing Elevate, we'll certainly do that now.
Thank you very much, Jill. Just a quick reminder, there's multiple ways that you can interact and ask questions at this point. You can utilize the chat screen at the bottom, the Q&A screen at the bottom, and then you can also raise your hand and I can unmute you to ask your question as well. So what's on everybody's mind? Sandra asks in chat, is there a fee for the My Resource Library?
There is not, unless you have, so there is a free version of My Resource Library that anyone can access. There is also now a paid for version of My Resource Library. You can access our Kimball catalog for free through My Resource Library, but there is some additional benefits if you pay for like a membership through My Resource Library that would allow you to create like digital boards, and have some additional access to some various manufacturers and products and features. But the true My Resource Library is not a chargeable service. It's a free extension that you download into CET, and you can access the Kimball catalog from there.
And I will add, I'm pretty sure MRL has a breakout session this afternoon as well. So if you're still making a decision on what to attend for the third session this afternoon, might be an opportunity to learn a little bit more about their product offerings. Great question, Sandra. Other questions at this point? All right. Question from Rachel just popped up into the QA. For the live design, do you have 1 to 3 options to start and narrow it down from there? Or do you have one that you start with and create options? Just wondering the general thought process. Start with little or more.
Wow, that's a really good question.
That's very good.
So really, each designer would probably answer that question differently. I personally am more of a fan of starting with one and creating those alternatives, unless I've been given, you know, some sort of feedback or information kind of beforehand. I start with one and kind of build from there, because we can always dial up or dial down a design. So I tend to start with one. I have seen other designers, especially if they've had some feedback prior to their initial meeting, they may grab 2 or 3 typicals, or if it's a client that really you just have no idea what to expect, they may grab 2 or 3 and start to edit from there. But usually, since the changes can be made so quickly, there's no need to pull like a 42 high, a 50 high, and a benching typical. You can pretty much edit the one typical that you have to create whatever scenarios you may need through alternatives. So I personally am more of a fan of starting with one. But again, each designer may answer that slightly differently.
Awesome, thank you. While everybody is typing up additional questions that come in, I will just add one piece of housekeeping. The next session, once we're done here, will kick off at 3:50 in the afternoon. So a shorter break than between sessions 1 and 2 this afternoon. So 3:50 Eastern time is the start of the last breakout session for the day. As we wrap up here, feel free to, grab a snack, grab a cup of coffee. Make sure to pop over to the general session. I know that there's some, the general hall. I know that they have some conversations and some opportunities to connect and network with folks during that break time as well. So once we're done here, make sure to pop over there before moving on to your final breakout session of the day, which will start promptly at 3:50 Eastern time. Any other questions for Jill at this point? All right. Well, Jill, thank you so much for sharing. That was absolutely fantastic. Really appreciate the information that you shared and the questions that we had from the audience. Look forward to seeing everyone as we continue on with CET Experience, but thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.